Assalamu alaikum, everyone. We talk a lot about relationships in many different contexts. The aspect I'm wanting to highlight today is how startups need to be thinking about this even before they approach any investor or anything that they have to do with their startups, really, and why it plays such a key role. It oftentimes goes understated what the importance is of maintaining and establishing those relationships. So, everyone knows building a business requires constant investment. You have a great idea, a startup. You start investing in your customers. You want to acquire them. And probably relevant to a lot of folks or startups in this room, incubators invest their time, effort, energy, and in some cases, money into the startups. Investors invest capital in those startups. And then if the startup performs well, you're looking for follow-on investors. And then the follow-on investors have to invest in their relationship with the existing investors and establish a little bit of trust. And if that works out, they then end up investing in the startup themselves. So there's a constant cycle of investment that's going on. But there's one relationship dynamic that I want to talk about today, which is between the investors and the startup themselves. So what is that really? A startup is looking for an investment, capital needed for growth, otherwise it's slow growth. So you're really looking for that investment. However, that investment isn't really possible unless there's an investment in the opposite direction, which is in establishing a relationship of trust that the startups initiate with the investors. So why is that important? Well, first of all, it's important to secure the investment in the first place. I can assure you no investor would want to go into a relationship or an actual investment unless they have that relationship of trust with the startup that they're looking to invest in. But there's more to it than that. Once you're establishing a relationship with an investor, you're also looking at them to provide value add beyond just capital. You want an investor to be incentivized to go out of their way to create new relationships for you, to open doors for you, to take out time whenever they need to. They won't really be incentivized to do that unless they have a healthy relationship with the startup. But perhaps the most important aspect of establishing and investing in that relationship involves sticking together through the tough times. Especially investing at the very early stage means that an investor and the startups will be working together for a long, long time. There will be ups and downs. So you want a relationship where the other party understands why both the parties are going through that situation. You want the investor to understand why they haven't been able to meet, why the startup hasn't been able to meet certain targets, and why that does not necessarily mean that the relationship itself has broken down. So all of this is well and good. But how do you actually invest in that relationship? Theoretical talk is great, but I think it starts with making a great first impression. I think that's easy enough. Avenues like 021Disrupt offer you that opportunity to just come up, say hello, put a name to a startup, put a name to a new relationship. Always communicate and share all stories, the good, the bad, the ugly. This starts prior to seeking investment and extends much further beyond that. You want that relationship and effective communication to extend throughout your journey. Perhaps, very importantly for me, be available. I know I might make myself available for startups whenever they request it, and I expect the same courtesy in return. Related to that is, at the same time, respect everyone's role and space. Sometimes people are busy, Sometimes timing doesn't work. Just be accepting of the fact that everyone has their own schedule as well and needs to accommodate various different things. But if you are doing it, expect the same from the investor as well. They also need to be mindful of your time, your commitment, your effort. So the more the relationship is of mutual respect and trust, the more these things will become second nature. And that's where kind of like it sums up, where it is trust that all partners are working in the interest of all parties. If I've invested in a company, I want to work towards its betterment. I want you to succeed. So don't assume that if we're not able to connect at a certain time or if availability issues have come up, that all of a sudden I have like a better sweetheart. No. If you've put capital in a company, you want it to succeed. So I will be trying my best to do everything that I can to make that happen. This is all great. Bullets on a slide, kind of like theoretical talk. But what should entrepreneurs really do? And this is where I want to share a couple of stories. Patari is a music generation and distribution platform in Pakistan that we invested in. Last August, I was in Islamabad. It was about midnight. I was one day away from heading back to London to my full-time role. And throughout that trip, I had heard people mentioning, you should look at Patari, you should think about investing in them, so on and so forth. I literally just had 24 hours left in the country, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll try to meet them next time. But I was like, why not give them a call? Found Emmer Naqvi's phone number from my brother-in-law through sources I shouldn't really reveal. Called him up at 12:15 a.m. In decent time. I messaged before calling. Picked up. I said, this is the background. I have a small investment in Spotify, have a little bit of an understanding of the space. I want to meet you guys, but there's a bit of a challenge. I'm leaving tomorrow night. I was in Islamabad, they were in Lahore. First response, we'll drive down tomorrow to meet you. Next day, 4 of them got in a car, drove from Lahore to Islamabad, met us for 5 hours. By the time we had finished that meeting, we were ready to invest effectively. The reason I'm highlighting that story is just that responsiveness, the availability, the understanding, it just established a relationship from the get-go that got us so much comfort that no business plan could have gotten us at that time. We understand it's not a perfect solution at all times, but it's just that appreciation that they were willing to invest their time in building that relationship. The true story is that they actually weren't even ready to raise an investment at that time. They didn't even have a proper deck ready. So I know that the 4 hours that they had in Lahore before traveling to Islamabad, they just put a deck together. But I knew that, and that's why a lot of that didn't even matter in terms of what the content was on the slide. What really mattered was we were able to get that meeting in, understood what their thesis was, what they were trying to do, and we wanted to reciprocate and back these capable guys. Another story I want to share is of a company that actually isn't even looking for an investment. I think these guys might actually be in the room. They just approached me out of the blue, wanting some advice. They've been putting their own money in. They feel they are not ready to raise an investment. But regularly, they send me these progress updates. A lot of time, I don't have the time to go through them. But it's a regular monthly feature. They don't say, oh, I might steal their idea, or I might kind of look into their numbers and share them with someone else. That's not their concern. Their concern is establishing that relationship so that when they are ready to approach me for an investment, we're starting from a very different position. that puts them in such an advantage compared to anyone else in that space that it's difficult to put in words. And that's why these are the small gestures and those investments in relationships that matter a lot, and ultimately help establish that trust, which is crucial not only to secure an investment, but also to make it successful. So these are good stories of like entrepreneurs doing the right things and investing in relationships. There's also the other side. What people shouldn't be doing. The CEO of a well-known startup company generating revenue in millions of dollars in Pakistan came to meet me in a Hummer. The following day, I met another investor who had met the same guy a week ago, and he told me he came to meet him in a Ferrari. The concern is not necessarily whether he used the money he had raised for the company to buy the Ferrari or the Hummer. It's just that it was such a terrible first impression that immediately we were just turned off. Are the incentives aligned? Is this guy really driven the same way? So just the perception value of showing up in a certain car had such a damaging effect to starting that relationship that this is probably one situation we probably don't want to get involved in. We can try to invest a lot in that relationship in trying to convince that guy that this is not the right way to approach it, but frankly, we don't have the time to do that. There are a lot more driven people in this country that we would rather back. Another example is this chain of emails that I got from a random individual, on the first of which was on April 14th. I don't know if you can read it, but reading it out, it says, "All right, we are a startup, not a startup, but we are running an amazing idea. So the questions are, what do we need to send to get ourselves evaluated? Number two, what's the meaning of investment? Is it loan, partnership, or conditions-based aid with no recovery?" I like that one. Have a WhatsApp number? Will be very handy. I can't remember exactly what I was doing on April 14th, but for one reason or the other, I wasn't able to get back to him immediately. On April 17th, 3 days later, the same guy writes to me, "Oh my God, I wonder how much time are you going to approve an investment? Looks like we are talking to national bank guys." Good job, buddy. That's a good start to that relationship and securing an investment. So he's giving me 3 days to do my diligence, establish that relationship, make the investment, and approve it effectively, and still be called the national bank guy. I'm sorry? And get back to him. So obviously that conversation didn't last very long, and my response was actually, even if you had the most brilliant idea on the planet, this rotten attitude is something that is never going to secure you an investment, and sure as hell, it won't be me. So the reason I'm highlighting these things are, these are real examples. Relationships are very, very important in this business. Investing essentially is a relationship business. We spoke about how relationships extend in many different ways. Startups have ongoing relationships with their customers. Similarly, investors have an ongoing relationship with startups. If I have a great relationship with the founding team and it doesn't work out, I would still want to back them in their next venture. We understand failures occur, but those relationships extend much beyond individual ventures. So remember, access to capital should only be a floor for entrepreneurs, not a ceiling. Invest in those relationships, build relationships of trust, which extend beyond the immediate need, and please reach out to investors before you want to raise an investment as well. Thank you very much.